brief summary of the findings, why they represent a risk. And you get the answer for this from your risk assessment. Because you're going to identify the risk, and then you're going to assess the risk on each one of the incidents. And the key here is continue. So they're looking futuristically and not at a point in time. It's now and going forward. If it continues, what is the potential breach that can occur? Okay? Then it says, and like I say, this word says brief. You're going to spend a lot of your time talking about the recommendations. For action. And you have to support this with a plan. So each one of these, when you did the risk assessment, would have identified a weakness. And this weakness comes from where? When you say you have a weakness.
From the issues, yeah.
Policies and procedures.
Yeah, because you can have the policies, but it may not be in practice.
Right. Or there could be gaps.
Yeah, or
Because it's like weaknesses comes from your policies and procedures. Because remember now, the company already have controls in place. What are some of those controls they already have in place? The log. What else?
They have the laws, they have the reports, they have guidance and training materials.
They have log, reports, guidance, and training materials.
And I think they did staff interviews, so they've already started.
Right? And then it says here, they got new tools. And they are unclear as what to do. So what are you going to put in your recommendation? Before you break it down, what are you going to recommend to the board to address this? Because all of this unclarity went to a potential breach of data and confidentiality because they were making mistakes. What?
What DPD is?
Data protection.
That's a weaknesses, right?
Weaknesses. Yeah, I didn't write the whole
And
question. Yeah, these are the key
confidentiality.
things.
Yeah.
So, what is your recommendation for action? Overall, before you break it down into immediate and long term. And remember, when you say your plan, they like them little flowchart things with boxes, with milestones. They like that.
Yeah.
So what are you going to recommend as a consultant to the board for compliance to carry out?
They need monitoring overall. Monitoring.
But weren't they being monitored?
They
Yes.
were the ones who found it. Because currently, they did
This-
transaction monitoring and internal audits, so they were already kind of doing it.
They were doing that.
They were doing it.
So what's going to be your plan?
How to fill those gaps.
So you're writing to the board, what are you going to tell the board?
To revisit those controls to close the gap.
Maybe enhance the P&Ps, enhance the policies, procedures,
Mhm.
training,
Training.
training.
Mm-hmm.
Some, to me, understanding of your role and what you're doing. There seems to be a lack of that, as well
Okay.
as a lack of segregation of duties in the organization.
So your first recommendation is what? That's too much.
Training.
Revisit the policies.
You need to give them a holistic plan, and then you break the plan down. So what is your overall plan to the board?
To control, well,
Roles and responsibilities.
but the overall plan is to manage the risk.
Mm-hmm. So that it doesn't continue.
Right.
How are you going to do that?
Well, you gotta, you manage it by, well, first of all, the board has to make a decision, either they're gonna keep it or not. When I say in terms of the risk, either they're gonna manage it or they're gonna terminate it.
How are you going to terminate it?
Well, they can kind of terminate it by outsourcing it. That was my view.
How are you going to outsource it?
Risk, though.
You got to outsource the
Because
risk.
it's data.
No,
How
they
I looked
got,
at it though is because it's data.
no,
Yeah,
for
but the
data
risk is stays with the
management.
company.
Right.
Well, yeah, I mean, the
So you
risk
still have the risk.
You sold,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, okay, so they decide, they can't terminate it. So they have to manage it.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I would say address the policies.
And then definitely training, because they don't know what they're doing, basically. Don't
Yeah,
know
they
what
need
they're
training,
doing.
yeah.
That's the first
I
thing,
would
train
start-
people.
so to,
Address those controls, what they have in place, and try to
Yes,
tighten those
tighten
gaps.
them, because they're already in place. No, I would say
And then
policies
also,
and procedures.
well,
I would say
right,
policies and procedures.
right, I think
And then have a, redo the role description, so everybody's assigned
Yes,
a
right.
role, description. Then,
It's for example, the data inputter, putting things anywhere on online,
then
different
you
people
start your
names.
training,
That's,
then you do
yeah,
immediate training.
right. So from the ground up, you have to do the training for their responsibilities and what their job role, what their role is. Because they seem, if they don't know.
I guess we could do those things and those priorities from
Yeah.
higher forward.
You need to give them a plan.
okay.
That's the first thing to do. You tell them, we need to draft and implement a compliance plan to address the following.
The plan will include all of my controls, all the problems. So when I draft in the plan,
Your plan is how you're going to address it.
all the issues.
They're your recommendation.
Yes.
These are your recommendations for
Yes.
each
Issue.
one of the issues
Okay.
that you did in your risk assessment.
Mhm.
So let's go to the first issue. What's the first issue? What's the first issue we have?
Incorrect data.
Incorrect data. How you going to address that? The question is, how did it occur? How did it occur? How did they get incorrect data?
Probably the number you were reviewing, that was input.
Okay, so we go again to roles and responsibilities, which stems from what? If you don't have clear roles and responsibilities, you don't have what?
Clear policies and procedures.
Clear policies and procedures. issue number 2? What's the second issue?
The incident logs. Identify increasing volume of missed breaches involving staff in different departments.
You're in the first paragraph?
No, second paragraph.
So
No,
we can
no,
talk
sorry.
about these
Mhm.
incident logs, but we just look at how they are reviewed and if they're addressed in a timely manner.
No, 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 hold on.
The second paragraph.
Incorrect
Please
data.
stored on the online records.
Right.
On several others.
Where you reading?
The dot right here, this all this in data input error because they incorrectly storing records of several others. So the one client information going into the online records of another
So that's incorrect
That's
data.
data.
Mm-hmm.
for the same thing.
Yeah.
Hold on.
So they have been recording them on the log,
Right.
Yeah.
okay?
So we
So
will
analyze them.
this actually has been recorded in the log.
Yeah.
So.
It's
can-
recorded.
Right, so could we speak to how they were addressing the issues that were logged? Or how detailed?
So it's been recorded, but how are they going to fix it and mitigate it going forward? I guess that's the question.
Yeah, but it has been increasing from different people
Right.
all over. So what is that signaling to you?
Training.
There's no segregation in a way, because if one person making the mistake in one department and someone else making the same mistake in another department, and everybody, it looks like everyone just inputting stuff and there's no
Like
Nobody's
oversight,
checking.
like
No one's-
No oversight.
No
yeah, there's no
oversight,
oversight
everyone
or
doing their
control
own
as to
thing.
what's going on.
Because all they're doing is just recording it. And it's at different departments and at different levels.
Right.
So there's no checks and balances.
There's no checks and balances.
That's still the same issue?
Mm-hmm, it's on the same one.
Okay.
So if you go down to 1, 2, 3, 4, it says in the fourth paragraph, second sentence, it says, these areas are indeed more than one-off lapses, that there does appear to be a pattern of issues or difficulties developing around these and that problems are widespread. Specifically, staff appear unclear on requirements and what is expected of them. So what is issue number 2?
Staff are clear.
Yeah.
Training.
That's just
Job
job
description.
Job descriptions.
Yeah.
And then it says it's increased due to the installation of a new record-keeping system.
Training and SOPs, standard operating procedures.
Mm-hmm. And then they have a shift. They have a shift to paperless. What's the issue there? You can't just go automatically. You always run a parallel system. It's a phased-in approach. So they move from paper to everything is on laptop and computers. There's no more people. People will be lost.
And then you don't have the audit trail there.
And exactly. And when you talk about this going paperless and then running a parallel system where they should have done, you need policies and procedure that goes with new technology. Because there are new rules, different from a paper society. So there are certain key things your recommendation needs to bring out. So let's look at some of those key things. What's the first thing you need? Key thing, immediate.
Training. Well,
Amend the P and P.
You have to amend the P&P.
yeah. Well, they need to fix it now, so it's still correct out.
Yeah, definitely, yeah.
Once you amend it, then.
But I guess amend the
Because it all
policies and
starts with
procedures.
Yeah,
policies and
uh-huh.
procedures, 'cause if you don't know
Amend it.
what to
Now,
follow, then-
after you amend it, so that this risk doesn't continue, what needs to be done?
A few minutes.
Test it.
Next.
You have to identify, identify them correctly.
What else you have to do?
Review.
Put controls in place to make sure that when errors are corrected, that there's some managing, you monitor and managing it to know who's responsible. And who does what.
Okay, so you already amended, now we're correcting it.
Don't we need some job descriptions
Mm-hmm.
immediately?
Yes.
That ain't long term. What else you can do immediately? Yes. And when you write here about amend policies and procedures, you have to tell examiner what policies and procedures you are going to amend. Anything else for short term? What you gonna do for long term?
Well, I think from one of my work, because there were errors across the entire organization, I would create a separate department that only handles data or deals with input of client data. And who manages or monitors the information that's placed in the system.
So we need
Data security officer.
I put data room or whatever name you could find, they call them. and see if you have, if that is statutorily required. Right?
Right, because don't you with the, one of the legislation, because with the legislation now, you must have a record keeping procedure
Yes.
as well as a destroying of your data.
Yes.
Right,
Uh-huh.
record management
Record
policy.
management.
Right.
policy,
Yeah,
yes.
I recommend it.
What else do you need for the long term? And make sure you put something in here on technology. Because you need policies and procedure how to use the new equipment. Going forward, the launching of new tools
Yeah, it should be tested first.
should be tested.
And run through compliance things.
Mm-hmm. Huh?
I think business development, they be so anxious to just
Yeah, but
get
it has to
up
go
there,
through
but-
compliance.
Yeah.
Because you have to look at the impact and what changes. You can't just introduce new tools. And compliance has to look at, okay, if we implement this tool, who does this affect? How does this affect the company? What measures need to put in place in order to mitigate against the risk? You what?
The nice to make some more paper, like a Robbie book. Facebook, get some
You want paper?
some more paper. Thanks, Robbie. But you need a loose paper, the loose sheets, you know, so you don't have to.
Oh, this is,
Yeah.
yeah, I had the same problem. I think this, yeah, this is cool.
What do you need, some blank sheets?
Yeah.
I don't know.
You have some?
You
What?
No, because your sheets and come out.
No, let me get you some sheets.
Yeah, please, yeah.
Going forward, tools should be tested, compliance check.
And what's the rest of that? Compliance check, something of, okay?
No, that's something else, which is the immediate / long term.
No, what comes after
But
compliance?
Compliance
I have paper
Check.
right here, you know. This assignment have me nervous, I just can't see nothing. And right in front of me, always paper I have.
You need paper too, eh?
No, man, they good.
Well, she have plenty paper. What else we need for the long term?
You need to have a procedure to check certain things every, like a cyclical check, like every year or 6 months, or whatever you've implemented. That might be like one of the last things. Long term.
Yeah, it could be in the policy, you could do for the long term. You can include in the annual compliance plan a review and report on data security to the board. And we all know that's quarterly. Here, immediately, you could tell the board you're gonna provide them, with a monthly report on the, what's the right word now?
Progress, update.
Remediation.
Yeah, on the remediation efforts. Because you really, what you have to tell, immediately you have to give them the comfort that this will not continue. But at the same time, in the long term, you're telling them that if it was to continue, these are the controls that we're gonna put in place. Because what they're looking for immediately is not to say it's going to continue. Immediately is, this is how we're going to address this so that we could reduce the risk. Then long term, this is if it were to continue, these are the controls that we're gonna put in place so that we reduce it.
So, like, one of, because this person was hired, was brought in there consultant,
And they worked with compliance.
and they work with compliance,
Mhm.
okay. Okay, so they already work with us.
They're already working with compliance. They're working with 3 of IO's permanent senior compliance and risk staff. They're working with the whole team.
Okay,
So it's not as if there was no compliance or no risk. Otherwise, the approach would have been different. They're there already. These things are happening.
yes,
But the gap happened because first you change the tools without training, without policy, not running a parallel system. And at the same time, you have staff here, everybody making the same mistake. So what I'm telling you, policies, procedures are not clear. The communication was not clear.
okay, I got you now.
Anything else you think we missing? You've been on this question for what, 5 weeks?
It's a tough one. I mean, it's just a lot of steps.
5 weeks.
Maybe get it together so much.
You have no other choice.
Okay, I think we're gonna wait.
It's crunch time, eh?
Yeah.
So put your roadmap here. Now, you could decide that after they have done this report, and you've done this won't be immediate, this won't be long, but you can actually have an audit carried out,
Yes.
okay?
External, external or internal?
It depends. If you have internal audit, you do internal. If you don't, then you do get your external auditors to do it. So you need to add in an audit in here.
Long term.
Long-term plan.
Medium term,
Medium, it's medium. So put it to the end of your immediate. You see what I mean? So it falls closer,
Okay.
yeah. So you put it like right, whatever you write in between here, you make that like your last point.
okay.
And then that audit would test the controls, adherence to the policies and the procedures that you just implemented. Audit of the plans implemented and the controls and adherence to the policies and procedures. Then of course, for the long term, you do another risk assessment. Of your data requirements. Again, looking at your log for breaches.
Data management, is that?
Mm-hmm. Long term, you want to develop an investigation framework within your compliance unit. That's how they go about investigating things like these near breaches. they should have done their own investigation and their own report.
Pretty much.
Within the compliance unit.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. They should actually investigate this. Hmm? So I want you to turn to 265 in the appendix. I know you didn't read this.
Yeah. What's that?
Appendix 1, Unit 5.
I don't have page numbers.
You don't?
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, this one, elements and effect of annual compliance plan?
Yes, but I want to show you something else. Ah, see that?
So they like this, something like this.
Process.
Would you like to do an actual plan? The plan will be something like this here. Setting your priorities. But I just wanted to show you all that everything that we went through is what you see here. You have it? Yes. That's the plan, and then this is what we did for our governance and risk. Remember when we first started the question?
Yeah.
I say G, governance, the board. Tone from the top, the board is already involved. And they already did a zero tolerance, and I said, now let's focus on risk. So we did risk for the last, what, 3 weeks? And so now today we look at compliance. What's this? That's a structure for your plan. Look at this. We went through all of this in the last 4 weeks.
Developing a structure, and then, plan is one. Yeah, developing a structure.
And you see how they laid it out? Executive summary, introduction, compliance infrastructure, compliance administration, standards and policies, education and training, risk and risk management, monitoring and audit, exceptions and breaches, reporting, whistleblowing, and enforcement. So, in here, you need to have an escalation process. Mm-hmm.
It's long term now.
Yeah, you have to put all these things in place. Because the thing about it, what is immediate is, they don't want any regulatory or financial risk from these near breaches. So whatever action you put here is action that needs to be done now to slow this down. And then you have the long-term ones, which is the actual plan that you're going to give them. I didn't need to mention when there are exceptions. Will exceptions be allowed? Oh, we'll let that be.
Like, let's say, like, for example, when I do my transaction monitoring,
Mm-hmm.
and I pull a batch and it appears that an individual is using multiple IDs. So when I actually pull the account, it's actually the same person, but he's just using a passport, driver's license, and, okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So like that
yeah,
would be
it's
like an
exception,
exception.
right.
Yeah.
What kind of controls are you going to recommend? Daily controls. immediately. This is happening now. Everybody is them, and this is all
Maybe some
over.
access control.
Access, Chinese walls, not everybody,
Firewalls.
firewalls, yeah, within the company internally, as well as even with using the system, if it's time stamped and everyone has a code. So when you go in, everyone has a signature, so you know who input, when they did it,
So that
There's
everyone
something-
have their own login
and they have their
credentials, so
login.
there's no
Yes.
sharing
Mhm.
login
Exactly.
credentials.
and it's stamped.
Yeah. I would also say like, even as simple as actually not rushing and taking your time, cause I feel like, you know, people do a lot of data input error by just
Could it
mistyping
be
and not-
pressure from quota?
So it's
Yes.
more.
Yeah. See, they're looking for you to think
And-
outside the box.
And to standardize how you input information, because some people may use abbreviations or different acronyms,
Mhm.
and so maybe triggering all kind of
So
different.
one, it
So
says that they're inputting it fast, number two, they may not be following policies and procedures, and three, no one is checking it.
There should be an input, or should be a check from different people.
Yes.
Mhm.
So those are the controls that you need to put in place immediately.
So like at the end of the day, a senior or supervisor should go ahead and check, okay,
But these are immediate fixes.
okay.
I think you should also tell staff immediately the repercussions when you do not do what it is you're supposed to do. That's the tone from the top. You have to let staff know. For non-compliance with the duty of confidentiality and data protection. That's the tone that's coming from the top. Isn't that the message from the board? We're not tolerating this no more. So they need to be aware, this is what will happen. Okay, thanks. So much we getting in this short space of time. Actually, let us start talking today, you know.
We have to talk this in the house.
I said, I will stop talking, you needed to talk us here today. Oh my God, what they could do.
I can call you.
Who? No, they ain't calling me. They will not. What else we need to do now? If we move from paper to paperless, what do we need to do now?
If we have paper, I guess to make sure that's back up somewhere, stored somewhere for historical, you know. You gotta have them for a certain number of years. So that paper stuff should be stored somewhere
Right.
or filed
But
somewhere.
could it be, we move from paper to
Was-
paperless? So let's say if we were doing data, we may have done it, recorded by paper.
Right,
Now you're putting it directly into the machine.
right.
Is it that staff need training on how to use the machines?
Yes.
Yes.
Then we need to know how to use it.
We have to do training on
You have
doing
training.
it.
Training on the.
And then you also-
I told them to say immediate, just so you could expand on it.
Well, I think first we need to develop a work procedure. How,
So like
how
a
we're gonna
workflow,
move,
a
workflow
workflow.
from paper to paperless.
Yeah.
Yeah. They need to establish that. Making sure
And that should have been a role of compliance. Compliance should have said we're moving from paper to paperless. How do we do that? And at the same time ensure that we're in compliance with the data protection laws.
And then it's a lot of stuff. You have to
You
make
see what I mean?
sure you're, you know, what's gonna happen to the historical physical paper, are they also gonna be soft copied and captured in this new system? And going forward, when you input data, will it overwrite what's already there? There's so much different things. going
Don't go
on.
too far.
I ain't going too far.
No way, no overwriting nothing.
No, don't go too
We
far.
can just have it back up someplace else.
Yeah, so it says back
So you're
up.
just talking about that transition from
Okay.
paperless to now using laptops. Everything is electronic. mentally think about a staff who's not used to doing that. That is a culture shift. And there was no training, no change in policy, you will have mistakes. So one of the immediate things you have to say is that it is the role of compliance to manage that shift in culture from paper to paperless. But even more important than this is what we said already. Compliance should have actually done a risk assessment. Moving from paper to paperless. Because remember I told you in last class, you have to look at all of the issues and then step back. What was the main issue? What caused all of this? Remember I told you to go back and say, these are all the symptoms. What is the main thing? Because they said in the question that everything started, they said, when they went paperless. So everything you saw there was the symptoms. So just like someone have a lot of scratches and stuff on them, and they say, I keep falling out, but they don't tell you what the problem is. The problem is I have high blood pressure. So I keep losing my balance. So you have to look at where is all of this stemming from. Once you know the main issue, you see the symptoms, then you know how to address it. What controls you need to put in place. Yeah, actually it's a difficult question. It comes every 2 years. And you gotta work on it because it's normally not a good grade. It is a hard one.
Stop bringing the hard ones back.
They
Stressing the
serious,
people.
they kill them, let them go.
There's a purpose for that. You haven't figured that out yet?
That ain't solving
Y'all
my
don't know
purpose.
y'all know what the purpose is?
No.
Yes.
What's the purpose?
What's the purpose?
They read you out. They read you out. You start with X number, but only a certain amount of people will get the certification. Make it difficult. Don't worry, there are people who've been trying for years.
For
To do
years.
what?
Yeah, everybody don't pass this.
Wow.
Yeah, I know, but they still trying to be good.
Yeah, they try.
Oh,
That's why they
wow.
Yeah,
So
it's
like-
because the
That's why
things
they
seem to
want
be
that
getting
first
more
paper.
harder and harder.
Yeah, and they
Right.
read you more and more and more.
And then
So
the
everybody
grades don't
passed the
correlate
AML
with the
portion?
thing,
Huh?
The AML portion, everybody passed the AML portion? Because our class has shrunk a lot.
Yeah.
But other people just don't want to come to class, you know?
That's what we thought, they just was just on their
Because a
own.
lot of them are struggling to pass that.
The
They have to
AML.
go and do, some have to do it all over again.
We should have started
Some
with
have to do
this
more
and then
assignments
doing
again.
it all.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, it's not easy.
No.
Because I mean, look at our group. Our group is not as big as it was when we started, right?
No.
We have less than half it.
We got a full house of
Yeah, we have less
first
than half.
Us
classes.
as well.
Yeah, that dwindle and that
We
dwindle.
may only have
and
what,
that
10? We have about 10 now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gee.
So like
But
in,
then-
in the preliminary ones, what we do, which is introduction, we had 65.
Wow.
Is it intermediate as well?
Intermediate, we all 65.
So only must be like 20 of us left, and the whole class is 10 in total.
Yeah.
Oh, so Lord.
Yeah.
Only about
It
20
is.
left. Yeah.
That's all it is.
Then when we
Are we
used to be
talking
that
about
other
65?
building, we used to have people standing in the room. But at the end of the day, a lot of people ain't taking the exam.
Oh, wow.
They try.
But I found AML much easier than
That's why I
this.
think we should start with this
This I would have been like,
Yeah,
I used to start with AML first.
AML.
No, AML is better.
Mhm.
Much better. Yeah, I like
Yes,
AML.
it's
then, I like
This
AML too.
foolishness.
This is not foolishness.
No, but I say like, because.
No, because AML is just AML.
Yeah.
That's it.
It's like a subset of, that's all.
And like we know what it is, you know, but it's about you read discretion, like you go blind, but you know, we know what you're saying, that you
Yeah.
say it.
No,
you
No,
know.
you're
but
saying
you
it's
won't
yes
go,
yourself.
you won't go
Yeah.
blank, you'll just answer and would miss all the meat.
All of it,
Yeah.
like all this week,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yes.
This is
Like
very
we know, but don't know
difficult.
how you break this down like this.
Really
in a
break
small
it down,
chunks.
because I agree with
Yeah.
I think you know how to handle
Difficult
it,
to
but not
articulate.
to the
Very
Yeah.
difficult to articulate.
that intricate level.
Because you know what, they kind of give a program to say, sit down and write it,
Yes.
and just go into all of that,
Mhm.
the T set out.
The 3,500 word limit too.
Yeah.
But you can get it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because once you've done your risk assessment of each one of those issues, following the table we did last week, identifying it, assessing it, what are the controls in place, how do you monitor it, how do you mitigate it against the future, all of that build right into here. And then you add all these other things to it. And that's what they're looking for. You have to do the risk assessment. Once you've done a risk assessment, you have your meat, and you go from there. Everything else that you put in there comes from you being a senior compliance officer. Huh?
And the senior level.
Yeah, this is senior level compliance. And that's what they're looking for. So that's how they've done even the AML ones now. All the questions are all practical. There's nothing from the book.
Yeah.
It's practical.
But even like that first paper I felt as though it was somewhat from the book, but then
No, it's practical too.
that was clearly quite practical.
It's practical.
Which first?
The first paper,
Yeah.
the GRC,
Oh.
It's practical.
that was practical.
And the AML, they have 7 questions. They're practical.
GRC.
There's 7 practical questions.
But they grading hard and harder after each paper.
Yeah.
It's like, geez.
Man.
And they telling you now they scanning it for plagiarism,
Every day.
copying, everything.
Everything.
Then they take off mark for mistakes, punctuation, all of that. She can just keep dropping low and low and low and low.
Thanks.
But that's why I keep telling you, start writing now. Because if you wait till that crunch time, then you're in problems. Then you see a grade and you start to die. But it's too late.
You done dead for me, son.
Slow that.
All right, so we good now, right? So what did y'all do in your group?
Not this.
Well,
I tell them come.
You did it. She's been working on this for 5 weeks.
Yeah.
She could tell you for 5 weeks they've been working on this. That's why the rest aren't here. We've been working on this and working on this and working on this.
But I would share my notes with them though.
Yeah.
I share my
Yeah.
notes, you share notes. Yeah.
So you gotta work on it. Huh?
I don't know where the rest of the people are.
Oh, they were in every class.
Oh,
Yeah,
so they were here last class.
Oh yeah,
Oh, I
they're writing now.
Yeah,
Okay.
writing.
They're writing.
But I still want to come to get the last.
yeah, the last lesson.
The last
They got
level.
everybody so happy Friday.
Well, I had to make up.
Was great. They came out?
Yeah,
Oh, I didn't
the
see
last
them.
people? Yeah, Friday.
Oh, I didn't see them yet. They were good? Oh, man.
I don't do
They mark hard.
They mark
They
very
tell me I
hard,
bullet point too
hard.
much for
Yeah.
my 10-point question.
No, you don't bullet point, you gotta write.
They did me bad.
They did you bad?
They made bullet point. But my 20-point questions were good, but the 10-point, I know better for next time. I throw the report to say everything out there.
For your 10 point? Why you bullet point?
I mean, I did like an essay, I mean, I like a paragraph, and I put some points down, you know. I
Yeah,
didn't,
and
I
like,
didn't
right,
support
from
it.
the-
I didn't bullet point the whole thing.
Right,
By
but
word,
y'all
so-
made it.
Because I was saying like 10
Yeah.
points,
Right.
I said it's only worth like 10 points.
No,
I
so
wrote like a little
what I told the
paragraph.
people in
And they get tired
AML,
of bullet points.
yeah, so the AML, I told the team is 3,500 words, right?
Right.
Then we divided it by the number of points.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
right?
it's like
We did that.
250
Yeah.
to
We
300
did that.
And I
words.
told them
We
to
did all
write.
that.
Yeah,
We
we
did all that.
You write.
But I write for my
Gotcha, man.
20-point
I don't know.
Write
question.
it,
Yeah.
rewrite it, and rewrite it. So that's what they're doing. They're writing them by paragraphs,
Right.
and then rewriting it and rewriting it. And that's what they're looking for.
Wait a minute.
So because when you write to the board doesn't want a 5-page document. You gotta put that in 1 page. You see what I'm saying? So that's why they're training you now. You have to write it, rewrite it, and rewrite it. And then you gotta look at the wording of the language.
So that is with issues and that.
And your wording of your language always falls in line with policies and procedures when you're talking about compliance. Is it in line with the policy? It is not in line with the policy. This is an exception to the policy. This is a breach of the policy. They're looking for that kind of language. So that's why you have to write it and rewrite it. Step back when you put everything in it. This is my audience. This is the board. What do I want the board to gather from this? What do I need their action on now? What are my next steps? Do I need more resources? Do I need more money? You have to tell them, what is it you need? How do I address this? And it has to be clear. So if it looks all muddled and you're too sure what you want, take a failure. It has to be clear. This part is all about writing. EML is all about suspicion. Should I file or should I not file? High risk, low risk, PEP.
Yeah.
Enhanced due diligence, simplified due diligence. That's not this. This is different. And it is the hardest part of this section.
It is hard.
Well, the questions weren't hard.
They weren't, but they didn't appear to be.
Exactly,
Right.
say that. They were,
Okay, question 7, they've had that before.
my questions are in this.
But y'all didn't go over these
What's that?
in class?
Yeah.
5, they've had that before. That's actually been a whole paper by itself. Culture and ethics. They don't have this paper by itself.
But notice what you said, practical, they were looking for practical.
Yes, everything is practical in this. This is not textbook. This is practical.
So maybe that is your approach then, so it's like.
You didn't think so. Yeah, like I said, it was a week ago.
They were trying to,
I think this one, they chop you at the ears. And it's like, yeah, we can back up line. That's not what I thought.
Okay. No, these weren't hard, and these 10 points ones are easy. Just don't bullet point. I just read someone's paper they're doing an AML recent, and they gave me 5 pages of bullet points. I'm telling you, fail. And it's due in 3 days.
Oh man. It's too fair.
Yeah, no bullet point. You have to understand this. They're not gonna let you pass.
You gotta demonstrate them.
Yeah, you know,
Right.
you know that.
Really?
Yeah.
Same multiple choice. They know they don't go that way.
Yeah, I think that, that's what they.
Some sergeant June did his better than I'm sorry, so.
I
Which
see.
doesn't teach. Cause he teaches it.
No,
Yeah.
I know
It's
someone,
more
I know
interactive.
someone, okay, let's just, I could say, let's do it parallel. I know someone who did a camps. Pass it, like that,
Multiple choice.
right, multiple choice. First go, didn't even open the book. They call me every day for about at least 5 years.
It's ridiculous. You got change your
This
number.
was
No,
What I say?
After the
For
first
life.
day.
Because it doesn't teach you how to do this.
No, it doesn't. No, no.
And to me, that's more AML.
It is more AM, it doesn't teach you
Okay.
this part of it. You could do that part, risk rate to clients, because the system does that, you could look at it, but when it comes to doing this, they cannot do that. This is a trained thing. And takes practice. And it's the language they're looking for. You want, when you write a report to the board understands exactly what you want, exactly what you're saying. When they have the people ask you a bunch of questions over and over again, I mean, it's not clear. So the next question, the next step assignment is not hard either.
Okay, let's go. Assignment number 3. Okay,
Okay.
hold on, let's read this down paper.
How many did you say last week?
Yeah, you said we was going over.
But you had it, what happened to yours?
I don't know where I put that.
Copy it first, please.
Assignment number 3.
Yeah, she gonna copy it. Assignment number 3.
Oh, man. Okay, it's clearer,
I
you know.
may read question number
I
3,
think
yeah.
it's clearer, but whoever he did today, yeah, it's clearer. It's the clearest of being to me since I read this question, it's the clearest. You know, she break up the issues, it's the short-term, long-term recommendations. You see, it's more than halfway there, I think, but just, yeah. I just start working on this tomorrow. But it's fresh in my brains, you know, at least jot down all this stuff on paper.
Right.
So then,
And
and
expand
then
on
go
it.
and span, yeah.
Is that kind of cool?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, they
I
need
can put all, I can put them in my.
Yeah.
organize that.
That's
Is
it.
this the right
My
one?
document,
Yeah.
short term, no,
Yeah.
I put all this stuff in, all. I go and span. Like a baby, you know, that's it, you know.
Okay,
Take her.
okay.
Alright. I found only 20 of us left. Between
Yeah, there's only about half of us are showing up.
Wow.
Even less.
in total, we think left. And then draft our first paper, maybe less.
Wow, the first class in the front here, all of the back first class?
Yeah.
Unbelievable. I didn't get my question yet. I don't know what my question is.
Yeah, you can look at it.
She gonna make copies of
I haven't read anything about question assignment 3. but it's-
Listen, that is my focus right now. I need to get through too.
Yeah.
I didn't but.
She need to come back to lecture for question 3.
She gonna photocopy it, I believe.
No, I mean next session. She may
We
try to
have, we have Stephen Thompson in June.
Well, we get plenty nuggets.
Yeah.
Oh, you love
Yeah,
them?
we
You
have
love
one.
them?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, yeah, she should.
You're already.
Yeah, yeah.
I guess I'll be in your class plenty times. I can
I
see you.
mean, we basically go.
And you gotta go
I mean,
and
they like this.
Yes, I don't understand what that person.
You gotta see what he writes on the first line.
yeah, it's like, give him a chance.
Yeah.
Class 2 and 3, I'll be looking over.
See, who you allow?
Stephen Thompson.
Yeah.
And who be here, Robbie?
Christine.
Oh, be here,
I can see what Thompson saying, what?
Right.
He prepared?
I agree, but you know, he's be prepared.
Yeah,
he
He's
does.
coming
He
with
does.
his nuggets
His
and
nuggets.
Yeah, he be.
Yeah.
Oh, we'll share some of your notes. Y'all share notes now. We just share all the notes.
Yeah.
Yeah, share all the notes. Question 1.
She have paper. See it.
No, never mind.
Oh, she got a book.
You want to go?
I got it, I think
You sure? Okay.
Lord, no, one question 3 and 4 together.
That's we got 4 questions to go through, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Shaping that one, so.
Yeah, we don't.
Now I can accept it more, you
Yeah.
know.
It's a really long process.
Trish, how do you ever do that with you?
I used to do like alphabetically, right? And then I put the source and the year and the apply. And
We are using resources.
okay,
I use those resources. I put everything.
All of them?
No, even if I do like research, it always is a direct source.
Yeah.
So we include it. This is my big world.
this money normally would be like the first 9. For example, see, I was then like 1 9 or 2, maybe 2. We could do HTTPS or whatever.
I use my website. Until I do, I use Word format.
Because what happened, I put like I put my footnotes. My websites, I put it, like, put it in a footnote. And I would be over here, I'll put like a 1 9 up, maybe 2. Like some of the HTTP stuff, I put in the actual footnote.
So you quote, you do this part of footnotes, and then you do.
I mean, like this line here, but the first 2 sentences, I actually have in my bibliography. So I do it like that, but you might sound like about 10, 12 marks. But that's the idea.
If I can read the video, I don't know what part of here I'm saying is not video.
I think the HTTPS, like referencing, I believe also have to look at
It's
that.
like
It's from both.
It's from a web, it's a web page. So that's why I'm puzzled. I think it's a because I
Anything I do like HTTPS, or something, I put in my footnotes, and I just talk to, like, for example, I'll talk to, for example, financial institutions would be my bibliography. I put the HTTPS in my footnote. Whether that's right, I'm so happy and I have never had a problem,
I don't know.
Or you could put the HTTPS in your references.
I do my bibliography through my Microsoft. That's how I do the format. And then make sure it's bibliography. I'm not using references because you could choose.
Yeah, I use both. I use both.
References
References
on this one.
use the two.
I don't know. Like I
What is
said,
it?
no, he said it's more of a reference page than a bibliography, but I use the bibliography and I use that format. So I understand. If I show this to any English person, English, someone who really knows how to cite, because I do it all. I do APA, MLA, Chicago. I know how to cite all the time.
Yeah.
So I don't know who he's talking about. Because it conflicts with the body of people. So I say, oh, perfectly perfect. One perfect reference is anything. Oh, it's not a reference. You know what you're talking about.
No, I don't see the problem.
I can see the problem. Then you say it's excessive.
Sometimes it's more contest them creates reading and then comments, which is so low.
Very low in my opinion.
I just want to do it like that.
Never seen one of them. Because I don't think his comments were.
Bibliography, you know enough about it all and everything, we should do it.
Yes, because I use it, I format my paper the way that. So once I plug in all my stuff, it would just populate once I do it the right way through Word.
Okay,
It would populate for me.
okay,
And make sure I got the flow and all that.
And says, let's see this. But you put me on bibliography, that's cool. And like I said, mine would be a bit shorter. And I put my HTTP in my footnote.
Oh, maybe he was just mad that I did this.
What?
Like my footnotes would usually be,
What else is it for? So I have mine.
Anyone please?
me.
Rob, you have it?
No, wait, just one, please.
You all right?
No.
Hmm? What happened?
No, I was just talking about the bibliography, like how to actually do it.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know what the examiner was, the grader was talking about, the bibliography section. That's,
You got a comment he made on your.
yeah, he made a comment regarding my bibliography, and, yeah.
I got one thing, okay, on my second paper, they said the candidate, the bibliography was not in the prescribed, they mentioned that on my second paper.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I used the exact same
The
format on the
same,
first, and I got
uh-huh.
very high mark on the first one.
Yes.
I didn't know what they were talking
I
about,
don't
and the
know.
third one, I just used the same thing, which could just pass, and there was no
Uh-huh.
mention made of my
Yep.
bibliography, so
Mm.
I don't
that
know.
had me.
That
Yeah,
threw
I
me for a
got this,
loop.
yeah, I didn't get it,
Because
like I said, right on the second one I got it. They
Yeah,
said
the
the
different
candidate
examiners
bibliography
mark.
was not, so I'm just
Yeah.
wondering if it
So
was
it
a
could be,
personal
it
thing.
could be the
I think it was
examiners
a-
from
I-
London, it could be examiners from the Asian hub, it's different people mark it.
So I don't know.
Yeah, different people mark it.
I
So let's
didn't
look
change
at the
anything
first
from
one.
the
Question
that just
one.
was due in January, I didn't change it.
Oh, they have
Me too. This,
30
I-
marks on that one.
And it's
The
not
next
like
one.
No, question was 25.
I'll show you.
Okay.
Different markers, the same.
Oh, but this one came before. This one came at the very first time they did GRC. Question number one. That's the easy one. Yes.
Until you see your paper back.
You want to.
What?
Oh, how has it developed?
Yes, yes. In this current
They
environment.
ain't asking what's the rule.
No, no.
The role has changed now
Mhm.
compared to before, where I feel like the compliance is more about AML. But
Right, now it's about
risk, governance,
Everything.
everything.
more regulation, more
Right.
standards,
So the key thing is to say it's at the heart of GRC, and they have a pivotal role to play in helping the firm in today's heavily regulated environment. So they want you to talk about how the role has changed. The last decade, how long is a decade?
10 years.
All right. Then they want you to show how the requirements in respect of technical and personal skills are also developed. So you need to get a job description from 10 years ago. Then get one 5 and get one now.
but you probably didn't even need a certification.
Probably not. And then examples to support your views. And make sure when you talk about this changing role and heavily regulated, they have now moved a lot of this into software technology. So compliance officers also have to be technologically savvy. To keep up with all the changing environment, they use technology. So that one is not hard. Okay, the next one is a risk management process. design a risk management process for the compliance function, and prepare a guidance paper to the board. So you have to do a risk management process for compliance. That's the same chapter we just did. Chapter 5. Okay, you read the scenario? So I want you, for 20 points, explain why the current approach to recruitment, vetting, and training of senior staff is not acceptable. I need a full recruitment policy.
That's question number 4.
3 and 4.
Then why is it not acceptable?
They don't seem to have succession plans in place.
Yeah, but it's looking at, it's taking the approach that you are a senior person who's been in compliance a very long time. So that's the first thing. So the question is, why is their approach not acceptable? So the next question is, what are the approaches to recruitment, vetting, and training that compliance need to see? So what is their approach? The approach says their vetting don't include senior management, no records, senior people, no training, nothing kept up to date. So what is their approach? Vetting is one-off. Isn't it a part of a compliance program that staff are vetted? Which chapter speaks about recruitment and training? Under risk. There's a chapter that speaks about recruitment. It should speak about recruitment.
four,
No,
babe.
it was
Was
probably-
it four?
it was four.
The compliance professional?
Yeah, probably four.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what Ms. Stone did.
It's a four.
Shasta.
Yeah, four.
Yeah, advertising.
So drawing on the content of the above scenario, produce a report for the executive team. So first you're gonna say, question 3, you're gonna talk about the approach and why it's wrong. And then in the 4th one, you're gonna be giving them the recommendation. So in total, that whole question is 50 points. Notice the last sentence, consider the needs of the intended audience for the report should be apparent throughout. You're writing this to the board. So this is not granular, this is high level. So don't answer this like a textbook. It says produce a report. So you're writing to the board, so you're gonna be telling the board what you're actually implementing, what you're going to implement. And why you need to implement it from a regulatory standpoint. What are the risks if we don't implement it? So after you talk about the role, if you do recruitment, vetting, and training, you do them separately, then they want you to give them examples of these activities, showing the benefit of it. So that means that you have them in place and you have them structured properly. How does it benefit? Which means that once you have them in place, then the risk has a control. And then the last bullet point, what your recommendation for the recruitment of the interim head of compliance and risk. Your recommendation is tailored at the deficiencies. So you're looking for someone with those skills to make this happen. Then they're looking for more examples. So this one is research based. They want plenty, yeah, they want examples.
Question 4?
They want examples.
Yes.
So when you talk about the role of recruitment, they want you to say, why is it important? Why you have to have a structure of recruitment in place. So you need to go and find examples of where institutions didn't have a proper recruitment process, and the regulatory breaches, or the penalties, or the consequences of not having it in place. And of course, the good practices will mitigate against the risk. But this one isn't bad. So you realize that this role of compliance under GRC, the compliance officer is actually still is in charge of even HR.
See that?
In charge of HR too. So it's not just the policies and procedures and all the operations of the company, but it's also HR. Yeah. That's all of it. So, finish the first one, that's due in April the 8th.
Yeah.
That's around the corner, you should be finished by
Yeah.
now.
They're just teasing us.
And this is on the 15th of July,
Yeah.
so you have March, April, May, June. You have enough time to do some research.
No, you have April.
April. Yeah, April.
No, this April the 8th, this is the first week.
Yeah, so we have April.
You have April,
And
May,
then May.
and June.
Yeah. This is the
You have plenty of time to write this paper.
Yeah.
The third one.
We will read this again after the second one.
Yeah.
That's it, I know they're gonna mark it out. Question 1 and question 2, they brought them before.
Stop bringing these things.
3 and 4 is new.
So they can still mark that out.
Exactly, so the whole thing take a long time.
But 1 and 2 they brought before, and they weren't well answered either.
So what happened the first time? What did we miss out?
What?
What kind of points did we miss out in the first question and the second question?
So, okay.
I know for question 1, students couldn't grasp the concept of the role of compliance in GRC. They couldn't connect it together. And so when they wrote disjointed. Because whenever you speak about GRC, that compliance is a pivotal role in each one of them. You're talking about the board, it's compliance. Talking about risk, it's compliance. Because risk and compliance work together. And if you talk about the C, that's compliance, which means making sure that you follow all the regulations and the laws. So it's just compliance just runs through everything. And that's how it's changed. It's not just compliance by itself, it just runs through every aspect of the business. And that's what the first question is looking at. How has it changed in this heavily regulated environment? Because there's so much regulation. You're not just doing compliance
By itself.
by itself, you're doing risk, and of course you have to report to the board, that's governance.
You guys are all masters.
Yes. So you have to wrap your mind around that. So when you look at an organization, there is the board, and then there's compliance.
You should be able to report directly to.
You report directly to the board. So that's what it is, it's the board, and then there is compliance
Where does the risk committee fall?
as a regular department.
Under, after compliance?
No, if it's a committee that's appointed by the board, then it's on the line with the board.
Board,
If it's
okay.
just a risk department, it falls with other departments,
Okay.
so it's under.
Because they get paid out of all the different
Right.
benefits, legal,
Yeah,
all that.
and compliance
Credit.
is on top of that with the report to the board.
Possibly.
What?
I was gonna ask if risk and compliance can be combined in one department.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So wish you all good luck. Work hard.
Yeah.
We will. Will it pay off?
Huh?
Is it will it pay off? That's the
Of
next
course it will, they can see the
So
difference in the efforts.
do they have like a quota or who asked?
I feel like they have a blacklist.
I'm wondering.
I'm
wondering.
Right.
If there's a quota.
Quota in the
like-
Bahamas. Who they
Someone
got?
asked that before.
Is there a quota
Like
who
you've been
they got in the
blacklisted.
Bahamas? I think a
I feel
quota.
like they.
We do have a lot of applicants,
Yeah. So I believe the quota, how much they can pass in the Bahamas every year. That's my opinion.
I mean in every region.
Yeah,
In every region, they probably do.
I think
And then they'll detect the best.
yeah, I think so too.
I just don't think I'm gonna get that person.
Still, I know, I got a new marker to start your
I
key
could
mark.
bring it past on that one, cause he was awful.
No.
I don't know, marker.
Yeah,
I think we have
my
the
marker,
same
my
marker.
You have the same marker?
I don't know,
I think so.
I believe you all probably said.
Yeah, he got our batch.
He got move on to another jurisdiction.
Yeah.
They go take them, right? It can't be the same marker,
No,
two
they take
papers.
them.
So we didn't get that main one. We didn't get that main one. They was drinking. And not
They were
tea.
mad.
They wasn't drinking no English tea.
They were mad when
What
they
the- what the
got
comments
pregnant.
That's what's up, yeah.
Let me take a
Oh,
hold
so,
of
oh,
the
my bullet
comments.
point too much. But, I did a
I
paragraph.
They don't like bullet points.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like
Me,
my
talking about
two, my two main ones, they told me that my paper was disjointed.
Oh, really?
I keep telling you all about that.
But that question was separate.
But it was separate questions, how you
Yeah.
get that word, they were disjointed.
Number
Yeah.
one,
Cause
The
I
first
did.
paper,
The
the
first
first
assignment.
paper was just like that. And then they mentioned how, well, they said my information kind of didn't match the mark allocation, they said. I think my question 6, they said had way more words. That's one, okay, like one of my questions, that was 20 point,
yeah.
I had like, one had like 1,200 words, the other one had like 7.
No, but I told you before, you get a,
Actually, I can go to the
it
same
has, you have
assignment.
to do it.
Want you to go over the word count, eh?
No,
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 it
the
has-
points
it
are
has
commensurate with
to be-
words.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
okay.
That's the way you
But
do
then,
it.
yeah, but
I
to
followed
me,
that though, I
sometimes-
followed that
I felt as
template.
though I kind of followed it, even though it went over. But that question 6, it was just so much to
Cut
put in
it
there.
down.
But then when you cut it
Yeah,
down, you
you
feel
cut it
like.
down.
They say too vague.
Yeah.
They
And
say
you
too
can tell that you
vague.
get penalized on the other
No,
end.
because
Yeah,
you
yeah,
cut it
like
down, they say
penalized.
candidates
You got
could have
penalized,
explored
yes.
more, 'cause that's
And I tell you
Yeah.
all to take the words and divide it by the numbers and stick to that number.
That's
You
what
stick
I
to that
did,
number.
actually.
Write it and rewrite it over and over again.
And then I think too, when I went
over and over.
and my question, I think when I hit my last question, I was just fatigued.
And you put bullet points.
No, I put bullet points.
She only put
I
700.
only put
Oh, you put
700.
700, yeah. You lost.
So, they marked
But
it.
for my last question,
That was
I did the pros and the cons, then I pick a side. They say should have put more of the cons. But I did pro con.
Yeah, and they
That-
actually
that-
just
I
need
pick
to-
a side.
You put the same thing?
I pick a
Which
side.
one?
Even
The
though,
last one?
the last one, even though the marks generally were very good for the last one, they said
Yes.
if there's a flaw, it's just that you should have, on the
Yeah.
con side, like elaborated
It
more.
was-
whatever.
They wanted more elaboration.
Yeah.
both
Okay,
sides.
more elaboration on
They,
the
they
outside.
were like, oh, you
When you
were,
run out
Too
of
you
words.
too
they
much.
were, it
Regulation
was a
is
very
to
distant,
every
oh, it was a
word.
very good
Oh, but this is a
answer,
fast
very good
question.
attempt.
Right, all they told me
It's a
was
fast
my
question.
own, all they said was
Yeah.
my own was too brief.
If regulation is
Yeah.
necessary.
They told me it was a good answer, but I should have put more cons. But I was like, I put pros and cons, and I
But you
put
see
the
the key
side.
word was
Uh-huh. Well, that's true.
You had to do 6, 8, 8.
Mm.
You had to do the keywords and these things, the certain
Okay.
things they're looking for.
Yeah. Plus pick a side. At the
Yeah,
end of the day. Yeah.
at the end of the day, but you want it balanced. So when you say no,
That's one of the words.
yes, no, yes, no, yeah, for each one.
It's just make me, good night.
Remember, but this one now, the keyword is continue
No, this is
in a recommendation. This is, how do you stop this so it doesn't continue?
Mhm.
That is key. That's what they're looking for.
Okay.
We underlined that.
It's continue.
It's the same thing.
It's continue. How do you stop this?
So actually, I'm gonna send you a separate email or something else.
Bye.
Good night.
Good
So
night.
definitely, like for the third assignment, it'll be equal anyway, right? Like 25 to 30 each.
Was 25,
So it'll be like equal words.
No, it's 25, 25, 20, and 30.
Yeah, basically equal words.
No, they're equal. Number 1 and 2 is equal.
Yeah.
20?
25, 25. 4, 3 is 20 words, and 4 is 30 words. And the maximum number of words is 3,500.
Okay. Allocate it, you know.
So it's still puzzle.
What?
No, I mean, don't worry with me.
Yeah, you have to balance it out.
Okay, is that?
Yeah, they take off all those things. Like I keep telling you, the keywords, things they're looking for. They're like the same one you're doing now. They say predominantly focus on recommendation.
Right.
So all your writing should be on that same part we did there.
Recommendations, yeah.
Recommendations. And they can see from the recommendations if you address the risk.
Mhm.
By the way in which you write your recommendation, they must be clear and succinct, not all over the place. And prioritize them. Remember I told you that last time. You can write them out now as draft, like how we did them on the board, but prioritize them. And that's what they look for, because it has to make sense and be clear.
So the issues part, were like a few points, they already give us the issues.
They already
in
give,
the
yeah,
set.
that's why they say brief.
So, but like I said, but 5 points then.
4 or 5 points is it? These are the issues.
Yeah. It's recommendation and the action plan.
Mhm.
Right.
But you're spending all your time with your recommendations. This one should be done immediately, this one should be done long term. So don't go all over the place rewriting the whole question.
Yeah,
They don't want that.
Yeah, they really give the issues.
Because when you write to the board and you give it an introduction, normally that's only 3 sentences. That's it.
Okay,
This is why I'm writing.
okay.
That's it. This is the course of action. That's it.
So it should be brief.
The brief should be brief.
Good.
The recommendations are long.
Yes, okay.
Upon that word count, but in real life it's shorter than that.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. Just brief and to the point.
For the issues, yeah.
But yeah,
Issues
yeah.
are brief to the point.
Brief,
Yeah,
brief.
brief, yeah.
I remember I underlined that word. Brief
Yeah.
summary.
Yeah.
Don't write them out bullet points.
Mhm.
You're gonna write them in 1 or 2 sentences with semicolon.
Mhm.
Don't be bullet point all that. They don't want that.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
So when you talk about your recommendation is supposed to address
Your issues.
this risk. This risk. You ain't in issues no more now. This risk.
Right, right.
You've identified this risk.
Mhm.
And this is my immediate plan, which includes your control.
Right.
That's what they're looking for.
Okay.
So get to work. Yes, work.
Hey, I'm gonna take a vacation after this finish.
Oh, people always say
This
that.
over in July, I'm going on vacation.
Aren't you gonna wait for the grade first?
No grade. That's the summer?
Okay, so I'll give you the comfort. You're not the first and you won't be the last.
Yeah.